Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Supergirl issue 1 by Sophie Campbell and Tamara Bonvillain. Kara Zor-El's strange new adventure begins this week as Supergirl takes on Princess Shark, who wants to see Metropolis become Sharkopolis. Kara doesn't like the sound of that and takes down the villain pretty quickly, dumping her back in the ocean to cool off a little bit since Kara has some other things to deal with, like her daily patrol of Kandor, which she's doing since her cousin Kal-El is no longer welcome there, having been exiled. Sophie Campbell doesn't waste any time just kind of dropping us into Kara's new story here, and I actually really like it, and I was actually surprised at how, I wouldn't say new reader friendly it is, but it kind of is a little bit because it's also riding on the back of Mark Waid's recent Action Comics run, which involved the Phantom Zone and Kandor and Superman being exiled from Kandor. He can no longer set foot there thanks to wanting to actually rehabilitate the Phantom Zoners. Considering this book is probably going to be used by a lot of people as like their first Supergirl comic, thanks to that new Supergirl movie coming out next year, and this being a new issue 1, it does feel like a lot of people are going to be lost on like what exactly is going on, but Sophie Campbell does do a good job of explaining where Kara is in her life now, how she's kind of having to pick up the slack of her cousin now that he's been exiled from Kandor, and I just also kind of like that we just kind of dropped into the ever-changing, ever-chaotic life of Kara Zor-El. Sophie also gives Kara an updated costume, and if you haven't noticed, Sophie Campbell is actually doing the writing and the artwork for the book, which is something you seldom see these days. And I think the book looks fantastic. I like the slight cartoony look to everything. The colors from Tamara Bonvillain just look fantastic. Tamara is another really great female colorist over at DC at the moment. She does wonders over on World's Finest. And yeah, the new costume is great. It's something very familiar. I think a lot of people are familiar with Supergirl wearing. It's the classic, skirt with the thigh-high boots that everyone has seen at one point or time in their lives. I do like the update on the cape though, and how it kind of like connects via like the arm collarbone creases. It looks really cool. A really interesting way to like connect a cape to a superhero costume. It's a neat update to a classic costume, and I wonder if it's because of the upcoming movie and where she'll sport, I imagine, a very similar costume to this. Supergirl soon meets with Krypto and races to the Fortress of Solitude, and despite feeling it's one thing after another with the bottled city, she dons her yellow ring of Norcan, which allows her to keep her powers while in the city, and she enters the bottled city, quickly stopping a runaway train. The energy Campbell is bringing to Supergirl's life is palpable. It's just, as Kara says, it's one thing after another. And as I said before, we're just kind of dropped into this chaos of her, going from one thing to another and not really being anyone else but Supergirl. It's an interesting contrast to Superman, who has those moments where, things can slow down in his life and he can just kind of hang out with his family and whatnot. But Kara is almost always Supergirl, and sure, we do get the other side of her life with Kara when she's, just a person, but obviously that's kind of taking a backseat here, and I like that Campbell is playing with that here, where she's always on call to help Kandor, and it's, kind of becoming a little bit too much for her. Supergirl finds that the train wreck was no accident. It was the work of Laon, a very fun character from way back when, who is effectively a Kryptonian werewolf, with red kryptonite having morphed him into this creature. Kara, having a past with Laon, tries to get him to remember who she is, but she's distracted by a woman who is almost crushed by some debris. Supergirl saves her in the nick of time, and Supergirl can't stop and chat though, using her cape to wrap up Laon and calm him down. I'm always really excited when a Kryptonian uses their cape to trap a villain, put out a fire, uses it as like a shield or something. So I'm really glad that Kara got to use it as a tie-up, or a thing to tie up a villain in. It is really cool. I think the cape is the most like underutilized of like Superman and Supergirl and the Superman family's arsenal of things that aren't just powers. It's a very unique material, obviously, because it's like indestructible, so it has some great uses, and it's great to see Sophie Campbell using it here for that. The woman from before approaches Kara as she's about to leave, and it's clear she's seemingly infatuated with the hero, praising her while putting Superman down. But Kara reminds her that it's not a contest, she's just happy that everyone is safe. The woman putting Superman down is kind of a great way to show this current climate in Kandor, where they willingly exiled Superman after he helped the Phantom Zoners out and agreed to some sort of work release program under good behavior, something Kandor didn't really want anything to do with. And it seems clear here that the people of Kandor didn't like that. It wasn't just the Science Council, it was the actual people didn't like the fact that these dangerous criminals would be getting a new lease on life if they have good behavior. And I like that that's what this is here, where this woman is just putting Superman down because of that, because he didn't have their interest in mind, he had the world's interest in mind. And I like that Kara has no interest in entertaining that idea. She immediately puts that down and is like, no, it's not a contest, that's like something like a super person would do. Later on, Kara sees the Science Council, who reject her requests to change up Laon's therapy treatments to ensure he gets the proper help. Now this is a direct continuation of Mark Waid's Action Comics storyline, since Laon was one of the inmates in the Phantom Zone, but is on a work release program now, and the council ask if Kara would actually be willing to take him on as a type of sponsor and kind of look after him. They basically just want to like palm him off onto Supergirl. Kara, however, knows that's a big undertaking and declines the offer, wanting to come up with other options for Laon. Kara is put in an interesting place here since she wants to help, but doesn't feel like that's the right way to do it, or how she would do it, since she knows how Cal would. But that's not how she would handle such an undertaking, and it really kind of upsets her because she finds herself again comparing herself to her cousin and feeling like she's forever in his shadow. What's cool about this is that she sees this all and decides that maybe she should just step out of the shadow. We're kind of like meeting this story we've seen countless times at the past, and instead of like going down the woe is me storyline and her having to like learn to step out of the shadow, she already knows that because she's been through that story countless times before. So she just decides to do something about it. Later on, as Kara is saving a plane, she gets a call from her mother Eliza, who reveals that her and her father Jeremiah have managed to get some leave from the DEO and have returned to Midvale and renovated the old house, hoping Kara will come by their housewarming party on the 4th of July weekend. Kara, however, knows that she'd be rather anywhere else than Midvale, and I have to keep reminding myself that Kara doesn't have the same relation to her quote-unquote hometown as Clark does with Smallville, since for her, it's a very turbulent time in her life. She was a teenager, she arrived on this alien world, she gets thrown in with a family and holed up in a Midwest town. She doesn't get to live mostly with her cousin or anything, the person she was meant to protect, who is now an adult and a hero of this world. So it's kind of a crazy time for Kara, and I can understand why she doesn't like Midvale. It hit at that right time when she was a teenager where things like that are just the worst, and I can totally understand that. Kara feigns excitement and agrees to visit as Eliza is pulled from the call by Jeremiah, who can't find any of his gardening tools. Later on, Kara packs for her trip, trying to convince herself that Midvale might actually be fun now and she might actually run into some old friends. During her packing, she finds her old chromatic super comb, which she would use to change her hair color when she used to go by the identity Linda Danvers. Now, a lot of this part of the book feels like it's running through a key point of Supergirl's past, or like a few key points of her past, kind of catch the reader up on like what she's been through. And this is what I was saying before, where like Kara has had like bunch of different origins, bunch of different things happen to her life. Her status quo always in motion, always changing. And this part of the book does a great job of showcasing that, where we get to see like, oh yeah, she did go by the name Linda Danvers at one time. She had a secret identity where she changed her hair colors, wear glasses, and be a real nerd and whatnot. That hasn't been the case for quite a while now, a few years now at least. But I like that Sophie is constantly sort of reminding us that like, oh yeah, Kara's been through quite a fair few like reboots, rechanges, sequels, prequels, all sorts of stuff like that. And it also appears that we're going to be starting to see a sort of streamline of that in some way. Like we're going to start to sort of see all this kind of coalesce down into like this is like the through line origin, and it looks like it's going to be like a sort of cobble together of all these like kind of familiar things that we've seen in other Supergirl media. We're all kind of thrown together, kind of like with Superman's history, where like everything is kind of canon in some way. Kara convinces herself that it will be fine, and a few weeks later she arrives in Midvale, noticing a Supergirl sign welcoming her to the town, but realizes she's never seen that there before. As she heads into town, she begins to see more and more of these Supergirl signs, only the Supergirl on them looks nothing like her. Thinking someone might be impersonating Supergirl, she heads to her parents' place, finding some of the old stuff from her room out on the curb, which upsets her since she didn't think her parents would ever throw any of that out. Crypto also finds amongst the tossed out things her old costumes, making Kara know that something definitely is going on here since Eliza and Jeremiah would not just dump this out on the street. Despite not really liking the costumes, she wants to take them to the Fortress of Solitude for safekeeping, but before she can do that, she runs into an old friend, Clarissa Glitedge, who is happy to see her old friend after so many years. The two catch up, and much like the part where Kara was packing, this is also used to explore even more of Kara's storied past. Clarissa makes reference to some real old stories from like the Golden Age where Kara was a soap opera star and then a camera operator, things no one has even thought of in a long while, and I just love it when comics reference like old 60s, 70s era comics like this and retroactively make that part of like the new modern continuity in some way. Kara asks Clarissa about the Supergirl stuff around town, and she learns that somehow Supergirl is now back in Midvale, and after she saved a few people, the town has become obsessed with her. Clarissa leaves to meet her parents and is very nearly hit by a car, but luckily Kara steps in and saves her as Supergirl. I do like that Kara is kind of using parts of like that Linda Danvers identity here, because she still has to use like the comb to make her hair blonde again when she's changing. So again, it's really fun that we're like taking all of these parts of her history and bringing them back in and kind of like developing a through line here where like all of this stuff is happening now, and this is what's going to be like her origin or her story from now on. The neighborhood all take note of Supergirl turning up, coming out to meet her, which surprises Supergirl since Amanda Waller ruined every hero's reputation during Absolute Power, so seeing people cheer for her is something she hasn't expected to see in a long while. While enjoying the praise, Clarissa points out that Kara isn't Supergirl and that she must be the impostor the real Supergirl warned them about. The people become scared of Kara as she tries to explain that the other Supergirl could be the dangerous one, wanting some information on the other Supergirl who's flying around. Kara soon gets her answers as the other Supergirl soon appears, along with her own super pet, a rabbit. Now I really like this imposter Supergirl since she appears like the Golden Age Supergirl. She's wearing this mostly blue costume, she's got the kind of shorter hair that area of Supergirl had, and I'm thinking Campbell is kind of a woman of culture here, as this Supergirl is a lot, like how best to say it, she's quite thicker than Kara, and that's not something I was kind of ready for, but I accept it. I'm fully behind this new Supergirl. This isn't something I'm complaining about at all. The woman proclaims herself as Supergirl, wanting to show the people Kara is the imposter. The Superwoman splashes a purple liquid on Kara, and she feels her costume begin to change, replacing her S shield with the letter P, which the false Supergirl uses to call her Phony Girl. The villain then hits her with a discombobulation generator, which is calibrated for Kryptonian biosignatures, specifically Kara's. The ray weakens her and the false Supergirl leaves, telling her and Krypto to leave Midvale while they still can. So it's pretty clear whomever this is familiar with Kryptonians and is smart as hell, being that they made a device that can actually hurt them. So I'm just throwing a theory out here, and I wonder if this is related to that woman Kara saved in Kandor, since she seemed rather kind of fangirly over Supergirl, and the way Sophie Campbell set out the panels and the art kind of lingered on this woman, it made it seem like she didn't like that Kara dismissed her comment about her being better than Superman. So I could see this plot being some sort of like quote-unquote perfect Supergirl, like there's a super fan who thinks that they know what Supergirl actually is and needs to be, and they want to make the real perfect Supergirl. I could definitely see a plot like that developing here, because it fits really well with the whole continuity thing that Campbell has been bringing up with all like the different things we've seen, like the comb, her time as a soap opera, all stuff that like people might like, but also some people have no idea about, some people may not like, and maybe this is like, you know, the fan kind of like picking and choosing which Supergirl is hers, you know, and I think that could be a really cool story for Supergirl. Kara is soon helped up by Krypto, and she quickly hides the costumes in her old hollow tree hiding spot she has around town, donning her Linda Danvers disguise again before heading home to see her parents, since maybe they know what's going on, and hell, maybe they're even there on behalf of the DEO working a case. Kara rings the house's doorbell and her parents answer the door, but they don't recognize her as their daughter. Kara can't sense anything with her super senses like mind control or anything influencing their choices, meaning her parents don't actually know who she is. She storms into the house as she is confronted by Eliza and Jeremiah's real daughter, Linda Danvers, which makes Kara begin to question, if this woman's Linda, then who is she? Supergirl issue 1 was a real surprise to me as it aims to actually stop upending Kara's life with some big status quo shift like she usually gets in a number 1, and instead it looks like Sophie Campbell is trying to streamline her continuity, making it a little bit easier for new readers to try and glom on to the book as we're ever so close to approaching a new film with Supergirl in it. We get some awesome callbacks to her various origins and lives she's lived over the decades she's existed in comics, and on top of that there's makings for some real fun Twilight Zone type stories here where nothing is as it seems, and I'm all for a good mystery, especially with Supergirl at the heart of it. I'm going to give this issue an 8.5 out of 10.